What's up, brother? Today we will be going over the dungeon collecting RPG project, I think, which was option 4. So the overview of the game was to design a dungeon RPG where the player has to collect treasures to fulfill a specified quota, and as they traverse through the dungeon, random events such as encountering enemies will occur that will force the player to take action. Let's see, the core requirements of the game was going to be event handling. So events that'll happen like as the player traverses through the dungeon. Enemy encounters using polymorphism. You need at least 3 enemy classes. They're going to be player actions, so I'm going to be able to do that with like different menus. There's going to be like a battle menu. There's going to be a dungeon menu like for moving around or like checking your inventory, and I'm also going to have a menu for if you want to like ascend to the next level or shift the dungeon or save the game, etc. The save load feature, that's also going to be in one of the menus I'm going to have. Bonus challenges, enhanced UI and UX. I did add some colors to my game, but I didn't really add any ASCII art. I'm not an artist, guys. I'm not an artist. And exception handling. I did throw a couple exception handling classes. I don't know if they're really cop-outs, but I guess you guys can decide if they are going to be cop-outs. All right, moving on. All right, let me start going over some of my gameplay features real quick. So when the players open the game, they can either save or load a game. So if they already have a save file, they can load their like information from that. If they want to make a new game, they can like choose the seed, choose the text file they want, and they can create a character. After that, players will have 3 options. They can either traverse through the dungeon, and whenever the player chooses the option to progress through the dungeon, it'll automatically save the game. If the player has enough gold, they can ascend in level. So, of course, like when you first start off the game, you're not going to have enough gold. But after you do that, after you like traverse through the dungeon a little bit, you should be able to have enough gold to ascend a level. So all you have to do is go back to this menu. And if the player exits the game, then that game will close. All right. So when the player chooses to progress through the dungeon, they're going to be able to view their stats, open their inventory. In the inventory menu, they can like view their inventory, get item info. They can drop an item, use a consumable item. Players are going to be able to move up, down, left, or right. However, during the random generation of each dungeon level, I only made it so that you could do positive coordinates. So players, if players want to go to like a new room, they would have to go up and to the right. If they want to go to previously entered rooms, they would have to go down or left. The reason for that, or the reason for players wanting to go back to other rooms, is let's say if there was like a shop room, they want to buy some items there, or if they want to keep fighting like enemies, because enemies are always going to be spawning inside enemy rooms. Another option in that menu is going to be like a coordinates option. It just shows the player's position, and the exit dungeon menu. It exits back to the main game menu, which allows the player to save the game, shift the dungeon layout, and exit the game and level up. Dungeons will have each level of the dungeon will have a set amount of rooms, so the current level plus 3. So let's say you're level 1, there's only going to be a max of 4 rooms in the dungeon. If you're level 20, there's only going to be a max of 20 rooms in the dungeon. And anything past 20 is going to be 20 rooms. There are going to be 4 different types of rooms. The save room, the save room's only going to spawn in the first room. Every time you kind of exit back to the main game menu and you reshift the dungeon layout, you're always going to end up in a save room, and it's always going to automatically save. However, if a player traverses through the dungeon, they can't go back to the save room and resave. They would have to go back to the main game menu and then kind of regenerate the dungeon and go back to the save room that way. Enemy rooms, they will always spawn a random enemy. The spawn rates depend on the level. I'll be talking about that later. The shop room, it'll spawn a shop with 6 items. If you buy an item, it gets removed from the shop. The shop only gets restocked if you regenerate the dungeon, and it's going to be like a completely different shop though. And the treasure room is going to spawn a random treasure. I think I made it so that the treasure has like a set of, it could spawn with like a random name. I chose like 10 different names and 10 different like materials. So like, let's say you could have like a gold scepter or like a diamond crown, stuff like that. And depending on the material, it'll determine like the value of the treasure. And treasures don't take up inventory space. They only add to your gold amount. So I have 6 different type of enemies. I'll go over this real quick, but I'll go over them in the class again. I have the goblin, slime, kobold, mimic, ghost, and rat. I'll go over them again in the enemies and all their mechanics. They're all gonna have unique battle mechanics. They all have fun voice lines. And at the beginning of the game, the player can choose a class. So, let me tell you about the stats. So there are gonna be a couple different stats. There's gonna be the strength stat, the defense stat, the speed stat, the critical strike stat, and the HP stat. I'll be going over those in the battle mechanics later on, but pretty much if you choose a specific class, like if you want to be a warrior, you get extra strength and HP per level up. Rogue, you get extra crit and speed per level up, etc., etc. All right, I made 2 different items. So the item is going to be the base class. I'll be going over this later on as well. Weapons and consumables. Axes give extra defense stat, swords give extra strength stat, bows give extra speed stat, and daggers give an extra crit stat. Consumables, potions heal for a certain amount of HP. The freeze heal heals a frozen status effect. That can be, so the ghost enemy will be able to freeze the player. I'll talk about that later on. And then the poison heal heals the poison status effect. Those are going to be from the rat enemies. I'll talk about how I implemented polymorphism later. File IO, I already talked about that. Battle mechanics, I'll go over this more in the battle class, inside the enemy class. UI and UX design, I just did some colors. And exception handling, I think I talked about that already. All right. Now we'll be going over some of the classes. I'll be going over them in the order that I made them. So let's get right into it. The first class I made was the item class. These are going to be protective member variables. So there's going to be the name of the item, the level of the item, the price of the item. I have 2 bools. The reason I had this was I didn't know any other way that I would be able to save the items, because they're all going to be like pointers, right? So I didn't know how I was going to be how I was going to be able to save the items into the save file without using this like bool option. I'll talk about how I save them later. All the getters and setters, all the constructors. I just have the constructor here. I have a virtual void item info. That's going to be like overridden by the, what are they called? The child classes. So I have the weapon item and the consumable item. Like I said, they're specific weapons with specific names give stats, like extra stats, and consumable items. I talked about them earlier as well. All right. Next, I'll be going over the inventory. It's kind of like a class that will like hold all the different types of items. Over here, I have a vector of item pointers. This is so I would be able to use polymorphism, where I could use like I could put weapon items and I can put consumable items all into this vector. Makes it nice and clean. Getters and setters over here. I have the inventory deconstructor. This is important because I have pointers in here. I have a print contents, an erase item, which I'll talk about that later. Plus item, it'll add an item pointer to the vector, and print shop. This is because The print contents is for the player, and the print shop is for the shop, since the shop also has an inventory. All right, now time for arguably the most important class, the player class. Players are going to have a max HP. These are all going to be private variables, by the way. HP stat, strength, defense, speed, crit, level, status, name, player class, gold, and the backpack, which is going to be an inventory pointer. All of these are going to be public. They're going to have all the getters and setters for all these classes, or all these variables, I mean. All the constructors. I have a couple of different constructors for the players, mostly because I was doing some testing, but I'll talk about the final one I use later. I have a deconstructor here, so I could delete the inventory pointer. I have a print stats, so you can see all the stats. I have a create empty inventory. I think I was just doing this for testing. I have a sync stats, which kind of syncs the stats to the level. So like if a player is like level 2, it'll sync all the stats so that all the stats are what a level 2 player of a certain class should have, and it adds all the stats from all the weapons that you have in your inventory. Add item, it adds the item, an item pointer to the player's inventory or backpack. Remove item, it removes, like a player is going to be able to drop an item. Use item, players are going to be able to use the consumable items I talked about before, the potions, freeze heal, and poison heal, and an inventory menu, so the players can choose options from that inventory menu. Whoa. I forgot I picked this theme. All right, so now we're going to be going over the enemy class. So this is going to be the base class or the parent class. All of these member variables are going to be protected, so that means they can be used by all of these child classes. That's why you don't see a lot of member variables inside the child classes. But enemies are going to have HP, strength, defense, speed, crit, level, status. I really wanted to implement a mechanic where players were going to be able to have like a flame sword or like a poison sword, so that they would be able to put a status effect on the enemy, but I just didn't have time. The gold, so that's the amount of gold that the enemy will drop at the end, and they're going to have an item pointer for loot, and that's going to be the loot that they're going to drop at the end of the battle. So functions, they're going to have all the getters and setters. I made a couple different constructors just so I could test things out. I have a deconstructor over here for the item pointer. I have all of these virtual void functions. I didn't make any of them pure virtual. I could have, and I probably should have to make this class abstract, but I didn't want to mess with my code too much. So I have a print stats that will print the enemy stats. I have a speak function, which chooses from a certain amount of lines that the enemy will be able to speak during battle. I have a death, so these are all the different death lines that the enemy could have. I have a room enter, so this is what the enemy is going to say once somebody enters the room. I think the mimic has a pretty unique one. Set stats, it'll set the stats of the enemy to the appropriate amount depending on the level. I'll be going over that later. Print stats, oh, I have print stats over here twice. Let me get rid of that actually. Okay, battle, so it takes a player pointer as a parameter, and this is pretty much how my whole battle system is going to work. Attack takes a player pointer as a parameter. Run, it takes a player pointer as a parameter as well. So goblins, pretty similar to enemy, except these lines are all going to be a little bit different. Slime is pretty similar as well, except it has a new heal function because slimes have a percentage chance to heal every turn. Kobolds, all of these are pretty similar. They're just kind of like a glorified goblin, and they drop more gold. Mimics, Mimic is the only enemy class that has an actual private member variable. It has another item pointer, and it allows the Mimic to drop 2 items of loot if you beat the Mimic. The where is it? The room enter is also pretty unique because it kind of disguises itself as a treasure room. I'll be going over the rooms, I think next, or maybe the one after next. But the room enter, it'll make it seem like the player's entering a treasure room, but once you try to like open that treasure chest, the mimic is gonna spawn. The ghost is pretty similar as well, except they have a freeze function. So ghosts are gonna have increased defense, and they're gonna have a chance to freeze the player if the ghost blocks the player's attack. And the rat function's very similar as well, but it's gonna have a poison function, and pretty much if the rat critical strikes on the player, it also puts the poison status effect on the player, which will make the player lose a set amount of HP per turn. All right, so yeah, the room function was next. So room was my only abstract function, so you're not able to use this, or abstract class, I mean. You're not able to use this class. You're only gonna be able to use these child classes, but let me talk about the room class. So all of these are gonna be protected member variables. There's gonna be an X, Y, because they're all gonna be like coordinates. A player P, so that's when the player like enters the room. A bool for entered. So some of these rooms, like the treasure room and the shop room, it matters if the player has entered that room or not. And the level of the room. So all the getters, setters, constructors, the deconstructor for the player pointer. I have a same function here to test if two rooms had the same coordinates. I don't think I ended up using it though. A run instance. So all of these rooms are going to have specific instances. I made this one a pure virtual, so that's what makes this class abstract, and a print coordinates that prints the room's coordinates. So first we have an enemy room. The enemy room is going to have a private member variable, an enemy pointer. It's going to have all the getters and setters, so just for the enemy, all the constructors. It's going to have a deconstructor for the enemy pointer. It's going to have a run instance. I'll be talking about the instance in the classes. It's going to have a create random enemy function, which will create a random enemy. So I'll talk about the spawn rates later when we actually get to the classes. And create a random item that the enemy will be able to hold. So next we have the treasure room. We have a string for the treasure name, string for the treasure property, and int for the gold value of the treasure. So it's going to have all the getters and setters for that, all the constructors, a deconstructor. It's going to have the run instance where if a player enters the room for the first time, they have an option of opening the chest. They open the chest, they get the treasure. If they move on to another room and they go back to this room, I made it so that if you enter this room, the entered becomes true and it won't spawn the treasure again. It'll say that the treasure chest is empty. And I have a random treasure name and a random property. The treasure name doesn't really matter. I just chose it for like, so to make the game more interesting. Property does matter because depending on the property, like copper, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, it's gonna change the worth of the treasure. I have the shop room, which takes an inventory pointer. I have a create random item. I have a create shop, and I have a shop menu here. So the create random item creates item pointers that we can put into the shop over here. It actually puts the items into the inventory, the vector inside the inventory class, and then the shop is going to have that inventory. When instance is run, the player is greeted by a shopkeeper, and the player is going to be able to buy some items. Then there's going to be the save room. This is going to be the first room of every instance of the dungeon level. But yeah, finally, I have the DungeonLevel class, which kind of generates the entire layout of the dungeon. So there's going to be int level, int x, int y, player pointer P, a vector of room pointers. So I use polymorphism over there as well so that I can fit rooms of all different types into this one dungeon level vector. I have a room count and a max room count. I have all the getters and setters, all the constructors. I have a deconstructor for the player pointer and the room pointer vector. I have a create treasure room, create enemy room, create shop room, create save room. All of these return a room pointer. I have a generate dungeon. So depending on the max rooms for the dungeon, it will generate randomly different instances of these rooms. The run instance, that's going to be important in the game, but pretty much runs like the instance of the dungeon level. The move function's over here so that players can move to different rooms, and the menu function is so that the player has a couple options to choose inside the dungeon level instance. All right, finally, before we get into the classes more specifically, I have the game class, which has the private member variables for level, F name, and seed. It has all the getters and setters over here. I need to double check what I use my bool for F here was. I don't remember what I used it for. I think I ended up scrapping it. But I have the game deconstructor over here. I have a create character. So when you're starting a game, you can create a character and it returns a player pointer. I have a generate level. So my generate level is going to generate a dungeon level over here. It's going to return that dungeon level. Ascend level just increases the level by 1. The save file will save the player to a text file. The load test function is going to test if a file name is valid. If it opens, if it doesn't, it'll throw an exception. The seed test, it'll test if a seed is valid. If not, it'll throw an exception. And the load file test, I believe. Oh no, load file is gonna have it's gonna return a player pointer so that when you load a game, it'll take that information from the file and put it into a player pointer, and the player is gonna be able to run through the dungeon instances. And the run is pretty much what gets the game going. All right, you guys, I have 19 classes to go through, so I will try to get through this as quickly as possible. So this is gonna be my item class over here. Getters and setters. The most important function here is the item info. It pretty much tells the player what the level of the item is, the name of the item, and the cost of the item. Most of my items are going to have a price of 0 cost. I was going to implement selling in the shot rooms, but I didn't have time to implement that feature in the game. All right. Let me go over to the weapon item. Oops. Weapon item, fairly simple. I used to have a Boolean for stat added. I got rid of that. Item info got overridden. It now says the level and the name, but it kind of shows you what stat each weapon is modifying. Consumable item is another important one. Let me see. Again, I overrode the item info, still says the level of the item. The potion heals for 2 times the player's level HP. Freeze heal, level doesn't matter because all it does is remove the freeze status condition. It's going to be really important later on once you start facing high level ghosts. And the poison heal, it removes the status poison status condition. This one's going to be really important later on when you fight really high level rats. Next is going to be the inventory class. This one's fairly simple as well. This print contents just goes through each item and inside the vector of item pointers, and it shows each level and the name of the item. Erase item just erases the item at a certain position from the inventory. I did position -1 here because I'll go over this in the player class. I'm going to go over that next. But pretty much when a player inputs something, it's going to be 1 higher than the actual position. So I had to do position -1 for erase item. Plus item, so if a player wants to add an item, since it's a vector, I can use .pushback, and it'll push back that item pointer inside the vector. Oh, and since the vector is full of item pointers, I just kind of like upcast the child classes. That's how I use my polymorphism. So that's how I'm able to do that. Sorry, I'm kind of bad at explaining this. And then the print shop, this is important for the shop room because the shop room also has an inventory. It's not just the player. All right, let me go over the player class real quick. This one's going to be a pretty long one. As you can see, like I said before, I had a lot of constructors over here. The one I ended up using, the one when you make a game is going to be this constructor over here. The one when you load a game is going to be this constructor here. Because when you start a game, you're not going to have an inventory. You're not going to have any gold, so that's not important. When you load a game, that's when you're going to have gold, and that's when you're going to have inventory. I'm going to have a deconstructor here to delete the backpack. Print stats. All of this is just to like make the font inside the terminal a different color. Over here is all like the stats. Create empty inventory. Again, I don't think I use this anymore. I was just using this to test out the player class early on. Sync stats. So this is what I was talking about before, where each time this function is called, the stats of the player are going to be synced based on the level. So these are the base stats for the level. These are the modifiers based on the class. If the player is frozen, this player's speed is cut in half. And all of these are going to modify. So depending on the weapons in the player's inventory, all of these are also going to be modifying the player's stats. So I also made it so that every time you drop an item or add an item, it syncs the stats. I think every turn, it'll also sync the stats of the player. Every turn in battle. Level up. I tried using this in my game function. I don't think it ended, or game class. I mean, I don't think it ended up working. So, yeah. Add item. This pretty much uses the plus item function inside inventory to add an item. If the inventory, if the inventory is full, it'll ask you if you want to remove an item instead, and then you can add the item. So the players will have a limited backpack space. It'll increase as the levels go on, but they're going to have limited backpack space. Remove item uses the erase function or erase item function from the inventory. Pretty simple. It also double checks if you want to drop the item. So use item, it'll let you kind of use all of the, it'll check if the item is a consumable or not. If it's not consumable, then it'll tell you can't use it. Then if you use it, so let's say you use a frozen heal. If you're not frozen, you won't end up using it. If you are frozen, it'll set your status to none, and you're no longer frozen. And your backpack size will go down. It'll erase the item. Let's see if you're poisoned. Same thing. If you want to use a potion, if your HP is already full, it'll what's it called? You won't use it. And if your HP is not full, it'll heal you to your max HP. If it overheals you, it'll just set your HP to max HP. Inventory menu. This allows you to view the inventory, get item info, drop an item, use an item, or exit. I just implemented all this over here. And then let me talk about the enemies real quick. So this is going to be my enemy class. This was the most fun class to implement. That's why I made 6 different enemies. But enemies are going to have, like I said, these protected variables, these constructors. So there are going to be different voice lines for the speaking. So this is going to be every turn of battle. This is going to be when the enemy dies. And this is going to be when the player enters a room and starts the enemy room instance. Set stats. So this is just base. So I'll tell you what it looks like later on in the other enemies. Print stats. So this is the battle function. So first the enemy speaks. Then the enemy sets stats to whatever is the base stats. So I implement some random stuff for the stats later on. I'll show you for each enemy. But while the enemy's HP and the player's HP are both over 0, this is when the battle will keep going on. So pretty much you have these different options. You have the option to attack, you have the option to run away, and you have an option to use item. If you chose to attack, it uses the attack function, which I'll be going over later. If you choose to run, it'll return that boolean. So let me scroll down. It's very fast. If the player's speed is greater than the enemy's speed, then the player can run away. If not, then the enemy attacks. Let's see, back to battle. And if the player inputs 3, then they can just use an item. Players can use unlimited consumable items in a turn, and they can still attack. So it doesn't count as a turn. Or it doesn't count as an action in your turn. Using items don't count as actions. When the enemy dies, it drops gold, it drops loot, and yeah, it'll use that add item feature that we looked at before. Now on to the attack. So this was really fun to implement. I think I changed up the crit chance later on, so I won't get into like the specifics of that. But pretty much, if the enemies, or if the crit chance and so if this is the crit chance and it adds the player's crit option, and pretty much if it's less than 25, it does normal damage, and if it's greater than 25, then it'll do crit damage or double damage. And you can only crit if your strength is higher than the enemy defense, and that goes for the enemy as well. The enemy can only crit if their strength is higher than the player's defense. If the player's defense, or if the enemy's defense is higher than the player's defense, then the enemy has a chance to block. Vice versa goes for the player. And that's pretty much it. If whoever's faster kills the opponent, the person they're going up against, then the next turn won't even happen. And if the player dies, then it's game over. Now let's go into the specific enemy code. Goblin is going to be our easiest one. I put everything in the header files. I have 19 classes over here, guys. If I put everything, this is actually like my second time doing this. This is why it's called Infinite Dungeon 2. It's because like the first time I did it, I put everything into the header files and the .cpp files. So I had like 40 classes to deal with, and I was going mental over that. So that's why I only put everything in the header files. But anyways, as you can see, this is a child class of enemy. The speak function is a little bit different. I have 10 different voice lines over here. They're pretty cute. 10 different death lines and 10 different room enter lines. They're pretty fun. Set stats. So goblins are going to have lower health than all the other enemies. All just base stats, but goblins are also going to drop half the amount of golds any other enemy would have. Print stats just prints the stats of the goblin. Battle is the exact same thing as the other battle. run is the same as well. Now let's go over the next enemy that can spawn. So goblins are going to be the only enemies that are going to be spawning in level 1 of the dungeon. Level 2 of the dungeon, slimes are going to start appearing. Let's see, they have 10 different voice lines over here, 10 different death lines, and 10 different room enter lines. Set stats, slimes are going to have higher health than any other enemy. And they're going to drop a normal amount of gold. Slimes also have the heal function because they have a chance to heal every single turn. Okay, battle function, pretty similar as well, except at the end of the attack turn, I believe, is when I put the heal. Yep, so heal has a random chance of happening. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so you players can only get poisoned after level 6. That's because that's when the rat starts to spawn in the dungeon. So at the end of each turn, if the player is poisoned, they take a certain amount of poison damage per turn. This gets crazy because, like, imagine if you're level 20, you lose 10 HP per turn. Oh, and also the bull run is always gonna end up being false here. The slime is gonna stick the enemy to battle, or stick the player to battle, so that's why the player won't be able to run. I thought it was pretty funny. Alright, now going on to the kobolds. Kobolds are the exact same thing as goblins, except, let me scroll down, they drop twice as much gold as any other enemy, and they have an extra strength modifier. Mimics, kobolds are also only going to spawn level 3 and up. Mimics are going to spawn level 4 and up. And they're pretty unique because the room enter, as you can see, it disguises itself as a treasure room over here. And then if you decide to open the treasure chest, or even if you don't decide to open the treasure chest, it'll still run the enemy battle instance. And yeah, and also it's the only enemy child class with a private member variable. It's going to be an item pointer, and it's pretty much going to, let me go back to the battle feature. It'll drop an item, and it'll drop another item. There we go. Pretty simple. Next is going to be the ghost enemy. Pretty similar as well. Let me go back to the stats over here. So the stats of the ghost, standard health. Ghosts are gonna have extra defense, and let me see. That is because they have a mechanic called freeze. Let me try to find that mechanic. Okay, yeah, they have a freeze mechanic. So pretty much, it has the ability to set the player's speed in half, pretty much. And the freeze chance only happens when the player's attack is blocked by the ghost. But however, I don't say the attack was blocked. I just changed it to your attack went through the ghost. I thought it was very thematic. And then lastly, I think is the most broken enemy. Rats are going to start spawning at level 6. And they're going to be really weak early on. But once you get to like level 20 plus, that's when they're going to permanently crit. And they're going to do double damage each turn. So that's when it starts to hurt. But similar to the ghost, they have another function called poison. You'll set the player's status to poisoned if the player doesn't already have a status on him. And like I said, at the end of each turn, player takes damage if it's poisoned. Oh, and it'll only poison if the rat crits. Yep. All right, that's it for the enemies. I'm going to take a break because I'm losing my voice here. I'll be right back. All right, so where were we? Let me go to the room class. All right, so this is going to be the room class over here. As you can see, it has the X, Y, and player pointer, entered Boolean, and level. All of them are going to be protected, so all of the child classes are going to be able to access these. These are all pretty simple. This one, I never use this function, so that's not important. Run instance is going to be a virtual void function, or pure virtual function, which means that room is going to be an abstract class. And print coordinates is just going to be a function that will print out the coordinates of the room. Okay, save room. Save room, pretty simple. It just shows that a campfire burns nearby, player enters the room, and the campfire burns out. So that way, if you go back into the room, so if you leave the room and go back into the room, it'll print out empty room, since entered is equal to true now. It doesn't save the game. It doesn't actually save the game inside the instance here, inside run instance, but it does save the game inside the game class. I'll show you how it saves the game. Let's go over shop room over here. Has some pretty important functions over here. Let me show you. This is just a test function. Where is it? My run instance. Let me go over the other functions first. So this is an item, create random item class. It just pretty much creates an item. It has a 50% chance of creating a consumable item of different types, and it has a 50% chance of creating a weapon item of all different types. And the items are all going to be the level of the dungeon. So like, let's say if the dungeon's level 1, they're all going to be level 1 items. If it's level 2, they're all going to be level 2 items. Create shop takes these items and puts them into a vector. So each shop is going to have 6 items, and it creates this inventory with all these items in it, and it puts it inside the shop items vector, or shop items inventory, which is over here. All right, and then I'll go over run instance, or let me go over the shop menu first. So this is, so in the shop menu, you can only buy and exit. And remember when I made the print shop and inventory, this is when I'm going to be using this function. So it'll let you select an item to buy, and if you don't have enough gold, it says you don't have enough money. If you do have enough gold, it adds the item to the, it gives the item to the player, it erases the item from the shop, and it sets the player's gold to minus that price. It even tells you the current gold. All right, and then running the instance, it loads the room. You enter into a shop room. This is just to change the color of the text. So this is the shop keep greeting you. And if it's your first time entering the room, that's why it's false here, it creates the shop so that when the next time you enter the room, it doesn't create a new shop. It just keeps the old shop from before. And then it prints out the shop menu function. All right. Now let's go to an easy one, treasure room. All right, so the treasure room function, getters and setters aren't really that important here, since when you run the instance, it creates like a random name and a random property. Oh, I actually chose 20 for this. Okay. So, random treasure name, it sets the treasure name to a random 1 of 20 names. So let's say you have a platter, a block, an anklet, a crown, etc. And random property, so let's say it's copper, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, right? So when you run the instance, it also says if it's copper, it's 50 gold, silver, 100, etc., etc. Diamond is 5,000 gold. So Diamonds are very rare, though. Very rare. I think, let me check the chance for it. Yeah, it has a 5% chance of spawning a diamond. So, very rare. I think if you get a diamond, you're pretty much set, but yeah. Oh, so yeah. If you enter the room, you have the option to open a treasure chest. So if you enter the room for the first time and you input 1, saying you want to open the chest, you take the item from the chest and it adds the gold to your gold. If you say no, or if you, what's it called? If you already entered the room, then, what's it called? You don't take the items of the chest because you already took the items of the chest. What did I just say there? I'm running on like very low sleep. And this is if you don't choose to open the chest, then it's treasure chest not open. There we go. And I think that's the basics of treasure room. Let's see. Let me go to enemy room, my favorite room. So look at all these enemies I included. All right, so let me go over the create random enemy. Oh, let me go over create random item first. So the create random item, like I said, same thing in the shop room class. But this way, you can create random enemies. And this is how I used, so the enemy room has an enemy pointer as a private member variable. So I just upcast all the different classes of enemies here. This is how I use polymorphism. And I use the constructor with only the level and an item. Because either way, during the battle instance, the enemy stats are going to be set based on the level anyways. All right. So at level 1, only goblins can spawn. Level 2, goblins and slimes can spawn. Level 3, goblins, slimes, and kobolds can spawn. Level 4, goblins, slimes, kobolds, and mimics, etc. And after this, every single type of enemy can spawn. All right. And when you run the instance, where is it? Okay, run instance, it loads the room. Why does it look like this? I swear it doesn't look like this on my actual Visual Studio. But yeah, I think this should be indented. Anyways, it creates a random enemy. It says what the enemy, it's like the room enter function that I showed you guys before. It starts the battle, and then if the player loses all his HP, then the program exits. It's game over. All right, now time for the dungeon level class. So this dungeon level class pretty much sets up the whole layout for each level of the dungeon. All right, so the level is going to be an int, position. There's going to be a player. So there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be a player in each room, but the player also has to be in the dungeon. So the player has to be in the dungeon, and then the player goes into the room. All right, I don't know if I explained that well. But there's also going to be a vector of room pointers, and this is how I also use polymorphism here for the rooms as well, because I upcast every single type of child class of the rooms to the parent class, so they're able to fit into this room pointer vector. I think I explained that correctly. Int RC, which stands for room count, int MR for max rooms. I think I used RC before. I don't think I ended up using it anymore. I just use the max room count. Getters and setters is my test. So all of these return a room, and let me show you. Generate dungeon. Like I said, max rooms depends on your level. So it's only going to be 3 plus your level. So let's say if you're level 1, the max amount of rooms in the dungeon can be level 4. If you're level 20, the max amount of rooms is only going to be 20. It stops at level, what's it called? 17. Yep. So here we go. There's a random chance of creating every room. There's a 20% chance of spawning a treasure room, a 50% chance of spawning an enemy room, and a 30% chance of spawning a shop room. Yep. Oh, and this is so like I said before, I think I said this before, when it generates the dungeon, it only generates the rooms in positive coordinates. So it either goes up 1 or to the right 1. So that's why it's always either x plus 1 or y plus 1. And run instance, it generates the dungeon. It sets the room count to 0, but I don't think that really matters. It sets the position of x and y to 0. And it sets, you go to the save room. The save room is always going to be in position 1. So as you can see right here. So the save room is always going to be in position 1, and it's going to spawn the menu. I will show you the menu now. So the menu, you can view your stats, open your inventory, you can move, you can get the coordinates that you are in right now. Excuse me. And then you can exit the dungeon menu and go back into the main game menu, which you will see in the game class. All right. So to view your stats, you just print stats. To open your inventory, it opens up the inventory menu I explained before. If you want to move, it opens up the move menu. I'm going to show you that later. Coordinates just show the coordinates you're at currently. And whenever you exit the dungeon into the main menu, it shifts the dungeon layout. So let's say you spawn in a save room and you turn right and it's an enemy room. Next time, maybe if you turn right, it's going to be locked, and you go up, it's going to be like a treasure room or something. All right. And then the movement. Here we go. You can move up, down, left, or right. When you're first starting off, if you're in room 0, so like the save room, you can only move up or right. So whenever you want to go to a new room, you can only move up or right. If the room doesn't exist, it's just going to say locked, and it resets the player's coordinates. If the room does exist, then it runs the room instance. This was just to test it out. But yeah. Oh yeah. So here it goes through all the rooms inside the room vector, the room pointer vector inside this class. And it sees if the X and the Y are the same as the player's current position. And it sets lock to false. So that's how it's able to go in. All right. Finally, the game class. All right. Whew. Let me drink some water real quick. I don't know how long I've been yapping for. All right. So, the game class, let's see. It has a level. Again, I forgot why I did this. I think I was just testing something out for this. File name for the string and the int for the seed. All going to be private variables. This is the create character process. Pretty much you choose a name for your character, you choose a class for your character, and it returns the player. This one generates the dungeon level with the player inside, and it creates a new dungeon level with the level of the dungeon and the player inside. It sets the player to the level of the dungeon. It syncs the player's stats and returns the dungeon. Ascend level just increases the level. I don't know why I made this into a function, but I did. Oh, save file. So it takes the player. It takes the player that was either created from the create character, or it takes a player from the load file. And it pretty much sets, it puts everything into a text file. So it takes the seed, it takes the level, it takes the name of the player, it takes the class, it takes the gold, it takes the player's backpacks. So this is the players get inventory, current size, and then it takes this and it iterates through a for loop all of the item information. So it gets the item level, it gets the item price, it gets the item name, it gets whether or not the item is a weapon, and it gets whether or not the item is a consumable. So that way, if it is, I'll show you this in the, what's it called? The load function. But this is load test. This is just me testing out exceptions. I don't know, I wanted the extra credit. But here's the load file. All of these are pretty self-explanatory. It just creates a player with these classes. But when it loads the item, if it's a weapon, then it creates a weapon item and it pushes it into the item vector, or item pointer vector, I mean. And then if it is not a weapon, then it creates a consumable item. All right. It creates an inventory. It creates the player, and it loads the player. It loads both the inventory and the player, since the inventory is inside the player. All right, are there any other important functions I need to go over? This is just exception handling classes. All right. So now going into the actual game. This is like welcoming to the game. Shout out to my GitHub. You could either choose to start a new game, or you could load a previous game from a text file. So let's say you want to start a new game. It tells you to put a file name. It tests out if the file name has .txt at the end. If it doesn't, then, I just changed this. I didn't sync it up to my GitHub yet. Let me pause and show you on my Visual Studio. Okay, back to it. Let me show you. I updated it for sure. Let me see. Here we go. So yeah, so it tests out if the file is a valid name, which means it has a .txt at the end. If it doesn't have a .txt, so this tests out, let me show you. I didn't go over these classes or these functions, but this tests out if it's a, the file can open, this tests out if it's a valid seed, and this tests out if it's a valid file name that you want to save. All right. So it tries this, and it catches, and it appends .txt to the file name if the exception is caught. All right, and then you enter the seed, and again, it throws an exception for that, just if you put an invalid seed on there. Here we go. You can create a player once it's open. An inventory is created, an empty inventory, so that the inventory inside player is not a null pointer, because default it's a null pointer. And then it syncs the stats. It sets the HP to the player's max HP, since the default HP is set to 0. And it prints the player's stats, and then the player finally enters the dungeon. All right, and then this is the whole main dungeon or main menu for the game. So this progress through level, every time you click this button, you go into a, or every time you input 1, you go into a save room and it automatically saves the game. If you want to ascend, you need a certain amount of gold. So it's the level times 100. So level 1, it's going to cost 100 gold to ascend. Level 10, it's going to cost 1,000 gold to ascend. And the difficulty is going to get higher and higher exponentially as you ascend through each level. And 3 is just to exit the game. All right. So then you can choose the input. A dungeon level is generated. So whenever you progress through a level, and if you want to quit back to the main game menu, it deletes the entire dungeon and kind of like redoes the layout of the dungeon. So it's kind of like my solution to getting soft locked in the game. It's a very low chance, but you could spawn with like 3 treasure rooms and not have enough to ascend to the next level, or you could spawn with 3 shop rooms. So if I do it this way, where if you exit to the game menu and you go back into the game, the dungeon shifts. That way you can have like an infinite amount of different instances that would allow you to ascend to a different level. All right. If you input 2, it checks if you have enough gold. I wrote some funny lines over here if you guys want to pause and read them for the different results. So like if you don't have enough gold, the dungeon master laughs at you and asks that you don't have enough gold, or it tells you you don't have enough gold. But yeah, but as you can see, even if you try to ascend, it's gonna generate a new dungeon. And this is just the exit. So now this is for the load. It takes the load. It throws an exception if it can't open the file. Then it loads the game, loads the file into player P. It syncs the stats, set the HP to max HP. It prints the player's stats, enters the dungeon, and then you have the exact same game menu over here. All right, and that should be it for all my classes. Now I'm gonna be going over some use cases. Actually, I'm just gonna be playing through the game, and hopefully you guys can see most of the use cases. I'm gonna try to play up until level 3, and then I'll try to create a player that's already at level 6. So you can see kind of like, or I'll create a player at like level 10, so you can see some like different enemies or different like room layouts. All right, you guys. Let me zoom in because I have really bad eyesight. All right, so let's go through some use cases in my game. So let's actually just like run through the game. What do I want to name my save file? Oh, so let me show you guys that if you type in a file without txt, it'll append the .txt to the file name. Let me restart it again. Let me zoom in again. And then if you, let's say you do put the .txt file. I already have a .txt file called testcarl, that's why I'm naming it that. All right, it doesn't append the .txt because it's already there, because that one function checks is there the last 4 letters or characters in the string are .txt. Anyways, enter an integer value seed. Let's just go for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Character creation. Let's enter a name for my character. Let's create or select a class. So as you can see, I picked rogue, so it should have higher speed and crit. And as you can see here, my speed is higher and my crit is higher than all my other stats, besides HP, of course. So now I'm entering the dungeon. I have 0 gold, right? Let me try to ascend to level 2. Ahaha. The dungeon master is confused. You don't Or you know you don't have enough gold, right? Ha 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 ha. And then he shifts the floor layout. All right, so now let's try to progress through level 1. And as I said previously, whenever you press input 1 in this game menu, the game saves. So now my character should be saved. Let me actually try to see. Let me see my window. Let me try to show you that it's saved real quick. So this is my testcarl.txt file. And there you go. My seed is saved. My level is saved. My character's name is saved. My, my class is saved. All of it's in there. My gold is saved. And then my backpack items, my number of backpack items. I have 0 right now, so. All right, let me go back to the game. Oops. There we go. All right, back to the game. Let me view my stats, for instance. So there we go. I can see my stats. I know that I have 4 inventory slots. I can open my inventory. Oh. And then I can view my inventory. My inventory is currently empty. It's going to say that for all of these since my inventory is empty right now. So let's not do this. And let's move. Oh, let's get my coordinates first. Let me show you guys that. So I'm at 0, 0 right now. So let me move. Let's move up. Oh, the room is locked. So the only other direction I can go is right. Oh, it seems like there's a goblin in this room. Sneers, I'll relish the taste of victory over your broken body. And it says battle with level 1 goblin begins. So goblin stats, level 1, HP 4, strength 1, defense 1. Tells you all the stats beforehand. Fresh faces, fresh loot. Hand over your belongings. All right, so let's attack. Let's attack. I chose to attack. The goblin blocked my attack. Oh no, the goblin attacks. We both blocked each other's attacks. Let's attack again. I'm faster. The goblin blocked my attack. Oh my god, I took 1 damage. The goblin blocked my attack again. Oh my. The goblin blocked my attack again. We're both really unlucky here. Okay, I finally hit the goblin. And I blocked the goblin's attack. Okay. I chose to attack. The goblin has 2 HP left. Oh, the goblin has 1 HP left. Oh, we both blocked each other's attack. We both blocked our attacks again. And finally, the goblin dies. Tell my family. Tell them I tried. Tell them I'm sorry. The goblin dropped 26 gold. So now my current gold amount is 26. I have a poison heal. It's not really useful right now, but I'll pick it up since I have the inventory space. So now it shows me my inventory contents. So now when I open my inventory, I can view my inventory. I can get item info. Let's see. I want to get the item info in position 1. Oh, it tells me that it removes my poison status condition. Let's see. Let me try to use it. Oh, I'm not poisoned. It still stays there, right? And now let's try to drop it. Let's drop position 1. Yes. And now my inventory is empty. Perfect. Now let's view my stats. I currently have 8 HP. I lost 2 HP from that battle. No status effects, but now I have 26 gold. So let's try to move. Oh, let me show you. So I moved right. Let me move back left. So that left. Oh, let me show you my coordinates first, actually. Oh, okay. Actually, let's move left first. It's an empty room. And remember, our coordinates were 0, 0 in that room. Now that the entered value, the entered Boolean is true, I go back to an empty room instead of having a campfire in there now. But that doesn't matter for enemy rooms. Enemy rooms, if it's entered or not, it doesn't matter. It's always going to spawn an enemy. As we can see here, Another battle with a level 1 goblin begins. So let's attack. Oh, let's try to run away this time. So run away. I had a higher speed stat. Goblin stats. I had a higher speed stat, so I was able to run away successfully. So now let's move up. Oh, there's another goblin over here. Let's attack. I chose to attack. 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 Oh my god. Maybe I might die here. Maybe I might die here. Oh no. Okay, I never got to say goodbye, to tell them I love them. Now I have 46 gold. And I got a level 1 bow. Sure. It'll increase my speed. So now let's see if I view my stats. 2, but now my speed is 3. There we go. And now there should be one final room in this dungeon that we haven't seen. There's a treasure room. Okay. There we go. A copper platter. Copper has the highest chance of spawning. Gave me 50 gold. Now, I'm really low on health, right? Let's exit the dungeon. And let's progress back through level 1. This will not only save the game, but it will heal me as well. So now when I view my stats, I should be fully healed. My speed is still there, and my gold is still there as well. But now when I move, it should be a little bit different. So maybe if I turn right, it might not be an enemy room. It might be locked. It might be something else. So it is going to be an enemy room again. So let's just go and attack them. Boom, boom, boom. Trying to speed run this. Okay, we got a poison heal. So now I have 108 gold. Let's exit the dungeon menu. Now let's ascend to level 2. All right, cost to ascend. Now I'm level 2. So let's progress through level 2. The game has saved. Let me look at my stats. I'm level 2 now. Speed stat went up, crit stat went up. Inventory stats went up as well, and I paid the gold. So now I need 200 gold. So now let's move. Let's move to the right. Room is locked. Okay, that means we would have to move up. Oh, okay, here we have a shop room instance. So now, all of these cost 100 gold to buy. That's a little expensive for me since I don't have any gold right now. But yeah, let's exit. And, let me show you my coordinates here. So like I went right, or I mean I went, what's it called? Did I go right? Oh, I did move right. Oh, I moved up. Okay. I was confused for a second there as to why my Y went up. So I moved up. So that's why my coordinates are 0, 1. All right. So you got to see every single different type of room. Let me kind of cheat over here. Yes. Thanks for playing. All right. Let me kind of cheat over here. Let me get, wrong window. All right, over here. So let me, and this way I can also show you guys my loading mechanism as well. So this first value right here is gonna be the seed. The second value over here is gonna be the level. So let's cheat and let's give ourselves, let's make ourselves like level 15, and let's give ourselves, so this line over here is gonna be the gold. Let's give ourselves like 10,000 gold, right? All right. So now we can test out the loading feature here as well. Let me full screen this, or let me get rid of the display capture real quick. Let me full screen this. Why does that look like that? Okay, here we go. Now let's select an option. Now let's load a game. Let's enter a file. Oh, okay. Let's see what happens if you don't enter a good file or a valid file. Let's say we do this. File cannot be opened. There we go. It threw an exception there. Now let's try again. All right. Oops. Oh, I made the capture way too big over here. Whoopsies. Let me try to fix this a little bit. Okay. Now let's try to load a game. And remember, my game file was called carl.txt or testcarl.txt. Boom. There we go. Now I'm level 15. I have 18 inventory slots. I have 10,000 gold. All right, so let's try to progress through the level, or through level 15. Hopefully we see some more interesting enemies here. Let's go right. Oh, goblins. Goblins are still going to be the most common enemies, so let's just attack. Fights are going to go a lot quicker here. Or maybe not, if I'm unlucky. I guess I'm unlucky here. Oh, this goblin. Okay, so the reason why it's not going as fast is because I don't have the items to be able to successfully run through this level. So this is why it's important to min-max items. I literally don't have any items right now. As you can see, I only have a bow and a poison heal. I should have at this point at least maybe like 15, 16 items. But goblins are still weak, so I should be able to dispatch this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Oh, and there we go. We have a potion that heals 30 HP. Maybe I can pick it up? Sure. All right, so let's move to the right. Oh, whoopsies. So, okay. I inputted an R there. That was not good. Not good. Let me zoom in over here for you guys. Let me try to load the game again. But yeah, well, anyways, that's what happens if you don't type in, or if you don't listen to the menus, or you don't follow the instructions on the menus. So let's progress again. Maybe it'll be a different... Oh, no, the seed's the same, so it should be another enemy room to the right, I believe. So yeah, here's another goblin. I believe the stats are a little bit different. So let's attack. Let's attack again. Let's attack again. Let's attack again. Attack again. Attack again. Attack again. Attack. All right, here we go. I never got to say goodbye, to tell them I love them. I made the goblin death lines really sad, so there we go. I had another level 15 potion. So now let's move again to the right. Room is locked. Okay, let's move up. Oh, now we have a battle with a slime. Okay. So now I'm pretty low on health here. The slime has 208 HP. I only have 62. I'm going to try to heal right now with my level 15 potion. So let's try to heal. Healed for 30. So now my new HP. And that doesn't count as an action in the turn. So I can still attack. The slime blocked my attack. Oh, I took 15 damage. This is not good. This is not good. Oh, and let me try to run away. The slime stakes me to battle. I can't escape. There we go. Attack again. Attack again. Oh, and the slime heals this turn, right? So he healed for 2 HP. So let me attack. Let me attack again. So the slime healed again this turn. He healed for... So they heal for a random amount of HP each turn. Let me attack again. Oh, let me see if I can get a game over screen here too. Just so you guys can see that. Looks like I'm about to get one. And when it's game over, the program exits. But it doesn't save at this point. So if you want to go back to your game, to your last save point, you can just load up your game. But anyways, those are some of our use cases. Let me change the display over here. All right. Those are some of our use cases. If you guys want to give me any feedback, please put those in the comments, or I believe I'm going to post this. I don't know how it's going to work on Canvas, but please give me feedback there. I'll try to continue working on this project during the summer. So if you guys want to keep up with it, I will also link my GitHub inside the description below. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.